everyone. It's your girl Miracle Sims, and you're watching God, Sex, and Love. Tonight, we're chatting with Dr. Val Fiott, and he's going to be sharing with us more about doxiva and the ways it can improve our blood flow. If you're ready to learn more about this, then stay tuned.
Hard to figure out that I'm not the type of girl that goes around.
Welcome back to God, Sex, and Love. I am here with Dr. Val Fiott. Hi.
Hello, thanks for having me here today.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here. I know you are representing an awesome company, so we're looking forward to learning more about them and you. If you could tell me where you are and just a little bit more about what you have going on.
Yeah, well, I'm in the state of Michigan. My career has been all about different aspects of health. I started off at a young age in the 1990s as a personal trainer. And I actually remember sitting in an EKG reading class and thinking to myself at age, 19 or so, probably, I thought, what, do we need to know this? I'm a personal trainer. I don't want to read EKG. Little did I know how much further I was going to be going into those kind of studies. So, I've worked as a health and wellness coach. I have run various fitness departments, health departments, a wellness department. One particular case, one working environment, which ties in a lot with doxiva, is I spent a couple of years as a corporate health and wellness director for a community, an aging services community, where the average age was 88 years old, if you can imagine. Usually those communities are around 70, 75. 88 was our average age. So, I mean, we had very unhealthy people with tremendous mobility issues. And I was tapped. They recruited me and they said, can we bring you in to work some miracles? We want to be the one place that's known worldwide, the one senior living community where very elderly people are getting tremendously healthier. And I said, well, yeah, we know how to do that. So we did a nice job, but I'll tell you, had we had doxiva back then, it would have been a complete game changer, because doxiva takes these big complicated strategies and makes them very, very simple. So we'll talk more about that, I guess, as we get into it.
Yes, yes, indeed. I know people are probably like, well, what is doxiva? What is he talking about? So can you give us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's a new device. It hasn't been on the market for terribly long yet, but it is a really incredible thing. When you think about people who have poor circulation, okay, usually what that means is their circulation is relatively limited to the gut, and it doesn't get into the periphery, like the digits and the toes and such. And this can lead to a lot of problems, especially for diabetics. Are you very familiar with diabetics and some of the issues they deal with?
I'm not personally, by the grace of God, but I hear that it affects, the African American community. I hear a lot about the word diabetes, but I mean, I'm sure you probably could just, yes, spread all your light right now and let people know, because I hear it's a
Yeah.
very, very impactful thing.
Yeah, diabetes is it's extraordinary. I've worked with, at this point, hundreds, if not over 1,000 diabetic patients,
Mm.
and they all experience different symptoms. But one of the common symptoms is that as time goes on with their diabetes, they get to the point where they start having foot ulcers. And this is a lot worse than it sounds. It might just sound like it's painful, and it is, but it really goes a lot further than that. It can get to a point pretty frequently where they actually need foot amputation. And that leads to all kinds of things. When you talk about my background, I'm someone who doesn't just see that as, okay, they lose a foot, they use crutches, they navigate their life. No, you lose a foot and now everything's changed. Your heart output throughout the day is different because your activities are obviously going to be lessened, right?
Mm.
So your heart's pumping out less blood throughout the day, which means the heart gets weaker faster, right? You're less athletic, so to speak. You're just less taking care of your heart through movement.
Mhm.
You're struggling more. You're in pain more psychologically. I try to deal with that. Seems like a very emotional adjustment to try to make. And so
Mhm.
all those things really hurt your wellness. They hurt your longevity. There is no real way to lose a foot and just kind of carry on unscathed. No matter how positive you try to be about it, at the end of the day, your physiology, the health of your blood vessels, everything is going to suffer at least a little bit because of that. So we certainly want to avoid any kind of amputations, especially in the feet, right?
Wow.
And with diabetics, this is a big concern. So what do we do? Well, how do we keep their circulation strong into the distal areas of the body, like the feet, so that we don't end up with ulcers, so that we don't end up potentially looking at, at removing a foot?
Yeah.
So one of the things that's so great about Doxiva is instead of dealing with these complicated exercises, which adherence to exercise is poor for everybody, but especially people who are sick, right?
Mhm.
If you're diabetic, the chances of wanting to really engage in a daily fitness program, or sometimes even more than once a day to avoid foot ulcers, it's not usually in the realm of reality, unfortunately. And so what I love about Doxiva, and one of the things I really want people to know about, is that with Doxiva, you don't have to get into all these foot exercises to try to improve circulation in the foot and try to prevent ulcers.
Mhm.
You don't have to, constantly be getting up and going for these long walks and doing all the things, which I still recommend. But I realize for a lot of people, they're very difficult and adherence is generally very poor to do these things. So with Doxiva, you just simply have this beautiful little unit at home. You don't have to go anywhere for administration. It's completely outpatient.
Mm.
You don't even have to break the skin. This is something you just take it, you give yourself a shot or two. You do that once or twice a day, about 5 days a week, usually,
Mm.
depending on severity of your symptoms. And it's really that easy. You now magically, and I say magic, but through through science and through God, you
Mhm.
are now pumping, you're improving circulation, let's say, without having to break the skin or actually do any exercise. And you're getting the circulation to, instead of just be limited to the gut like it generally is in this population, now you're getting circulation to really spread throughout the body. You're nourishing the tissues, not just in the feet, but everywhere. You're nourishing the tissues, you're strengthening the body, you're just doing everything that the body needs, and a lot of the benefits that are normally limited to exercise and better nutrition. So I just think it's such a beautiful thing. I hope that explains it well.
Wow. Wow. Well, you definitely given me a lot to think about on today because even with the things that you were saying in the beginning about the fact that, like, when you brought up the situation about the foot and how it's life changing, and in my mind, I was thinking what you mentioned, you're like, okay, yeah, your foot is gone. But again, one of the things that I remembered or thought of is that, that there's this phrase, of course, you don't know what you don't have until it's gone and whatnot. And so, we think about that when it comes to any body part, really. I know it's not funny. Well, it's funny because I'm thinking about it. But basically, there's a gentleman. I won't call him out or whatever. But there's this gentleman, an older gentleman, who I guess has been having either some pain in his hip or something like that. And he's like, all the years I've been sitting on my hind parts. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
When you don't realize how important they are until you can't use them or until they're in pain, and and things like that. And so, so
Yeah.
just that part, because you with what you said, not only I mean, maybe I didn't even think about that your heart is affected when your foot is amputated, for example, and everything like that. So that already was just like, oh wow, a lot to think about. But then, what you're saying, that I don't want to say the name wrong, so my apologies. I'll let you keep saying the name, but what it provides, is something that now I know anybody's probably going to try to like find ways to kind of get out of exercise. I know I'm over here. Look, don't get me started talking about I have a whole series called accountability where I was working out. I know. I need more and stuff like that. So but it does sound like it's going to be something that's very going to beneficial to our elderly community and whatnot. So with that, is it just kind of like for elders, or is it for everybody, or
Great question. It's definitely for everyone,
mm,
but there's no question that ultimately it's the elderly who are using it more and who will probably continue to use it more, just because they're more. This is more of their kind of issue. It's
okay.
usually with younger people and even younger diabetics, foot ulcers are not as common. So, but certainly, it's honestly, I actually would go so far as to say, and this is a little a little premature perhaps, but I would go so far as to say even the healthy should be using this
Mhm.
because there is no downside. You know, it doesn't hurt. It's not invasive. There really is no downside. So why not give yourself a little pump to get your circulation better? You know, unless you're a full-time athlete,
Mhm.
it seems to me like we would all benefit from just having at least a little bit of that of Doxiva in our lives.
Mhm.
But you know, there's also a reason to some degree why the body is set up the way it is, why our circulation is more spared on the periphery, on the digits and the toes and such, and why it's more limited to the gut. So I guess you don't want to play too much with that unless you need to. But again, there's some good things to be said for improving circulation throughout the body. And that's why exercise is so beneficial for us when done right. And again, that's why Doxiva is so critical for people who can't or won't exercise much.
Mm. So now when I hear circulation, I think more so about air, but you're referring to blood, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And so for people that are like, well, why would my like, I'm not even thinking about blood circulation. Like, I don't even think I even thought about it before we had this conversation, you know? So
Yeah.
can you share with us like why that's important for, I mean, I know you mentioned the ulcers. Is that the only thing, or is there more things involved in that, or?
No, there's other scenarios as well. Ulcers are a big part of it all because those are what can pretty quickly lead to amputation, and they're statistically it's happening at an alarming rate. I mean, it's a very scary thing. To one minute you find out you have diabetes, all you have foot ulcers as a result, and then all of a sudden it can happen very quick. This isn't something that has to take years and years. So all of a sudden now these people are finding out, hey, unfortunately, you're at a point now where you're a candidate to lose a foot and now you have to adjust to a whole different different world. I mean, that's I can't imagine it. I can't imagine uh being able to get through something like that because that just sounds so unbelievably challenging. So anyway, to answer your question, you'd asked, is it just ulcers or are there other issues as well? Oh, and also about circulation, right? Let me explain circulation a little bit better. Maybe this is a more important thing. When we talk about how healthy somebody is, ultimately, I can boil that down. Like instead of just looking at their medical chart and saying what problems they have or don't have, instead of just looking at what their CBC looked like recently, we can go much further and just boil down to what is the quality of the blood that's going through that's circulating through their body. Okay. If you understand the health, the actual health of the blood, you understand the health of the tissues in the body, the cells, the whole body, really. So
Mhm.
let me put it this way. Your blood is about 120 days old, about 4 months old. So the cheeseburger I had 6 months ago is no longer in my blood. I am essentially free of it. And those toxins and all that, all the all the negative things, let's just say, that came from that cheeseburger are no longer in my blood because my blood is 4 months old.
Mhm.
Now, if I had one this morning, or if I drank alcohol last night, or if I did anything to myself um, that was negative, then yeah, that is within me, and that's harming the health of my blood. It's harming the blood's ability to nourish the body. See what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Your blood is ultimately, that's the blood's job, really, is to give the body the tools that it needs so that all our cells and organs and everything else can truly function.
Mhm.
So when we have unhealthy blood, and we have, oh boy, do we have unhealthy blood. We are getting less and less healthy all the time. Even our food is less healthy. I mean, our vegetables and fruits, and I shouldn't go on too many tangents, but
Mhm.
our vegetables and our fruits being grown in the same place they were 60 years ago are now far more devoid of many of the phytochemicals and nutrients and such that we had 30, 40, 50 years ago. And they're growing in the same exact places. So these are very scary things. So we are designed right now. We are in a stage of life where the body cannot really be as healthy as it used to be through the same means. We now have to do more. We have to work harder to try to keep our blood healthier because even our healthy food is less healthy.
Mhm.
And of course, lives are in some ways more stressed and lots of other factors as well. So yeah, that's where we are, and that's why circulation is so important, and why especially for the last 4 months that make up the blood you have right now, you want to be well hydrated. You want to be low on stress. You want to have enough magnesium. You want to have all the right components as close to the ideal targets as possible.
Mhm.
And when you don't even have good circulation, now it doesn't even matter really all that much how healthy your blood is or isn't. And of course, in diabetics, they have unhealthy blood for the most part. But now you can't even, you're not even able to use the health that it is within the blood, the vitamins, the minerals, everything, all the good components in the blood are really of very little good to you, or very, very little use to you if you're having poor circulation in the first place. And again, that's why Doxiva is so important for people, especially who won't exercise or who don't get productive exercise for some other reason.
Got you, man. You got me thinking about a few things. Like some might be a little bit controversial. So I don't know, should I even ask on here? But maybe I ask you after the show.
Yeah, sure.
Because when it comes to like amputations and all this stuff, because there's a lot going on these days. I'm sure you know about it. But anyway, but aside from that, the other thing I was thinking about is, this what you're saying about the blood, because I noticed, like when I was pregnant, for example, I noticed that was this sounds bad, but it's the number one thing they always wanted from me when I went to the doctor was my blood. They wanted my blood and urine,
Mhm.
and it's
Always.
like, but obviously there's so much that you all can tell from looking at the blood, right? Um, so yeah, it's very, very interesting to think about. And I feel like that's part of the things that make, you know, well, I feel like God is so great because at the end of the day, it's just like, look at how intricate we are. Look at,
Yeah.
studying our blood can lead to the things that you're talking about today. To be like, okay, well, we know this is what you need by studying this. And so that's on a whole nother level that I don't even know if people even think about or consider at all until they're probably in health situations
Yeah.
and stuff. But it's amazing. It's amazing. So is that part of your studies as well? Like, looking at people's blood and diagnosing and things like that, or like
Oh, it was at one point. It's not so much something that I'm still doing now, but uh, my background at this point, my career at this point is more about research and statistics
mm,
and health outcomes. And so a big part of what I personally do outside of my representing of Doxiva
mhm,
is that I'm a big part of looking at people's current lifestyles and looking at what their food intake is like, looking at their hydrational habits, their sleep habits, etc., and then making some predictions in terms of, okay, if we don't intervene, what is your health looking like in the next 5, 10, 15 years? There's a lot of statistical data on the way you're living and what that's going to lead to. And the kind of things that so many people blow off, so many people, that's okay. I know I should eat healthy. I'll do it next year. This year's too busy with work. This year's this, and things we don't think about. I'm good friends with a couple who I do work with, and they really do value health, but not to the point where they'll keep a regular bedtime, not to the point where they'll do certain things around the house to ensure that they can be healthy, and then they can supplement missing vitamins and minerals, and the list really goes on and on of things that they're missing each and every day. And
mm,
so those are concerns, and those concerns unfortunately will add up to very likely be destructive to some components of their health. So a big part of what I do is better understanding those things and trying to bridge the gaps. And obviously no one's going to live perfectly. I don't want to either. But when you think about the possibility of being hospitalized later in life for potentially years, losing mobility, losing a foot, like we spoke of, when you think about all those things, you start to realize, wow, a lot of these decisions I'm making, maybe I can make better. Maybe it's worth sacrificing some of the things I enjoy to be able to enjoy those things later in life, so
mhm.
just all comes down to how we're setting yourselves up for later.
Oh yeah, man. It's well, you just said what I was just sitting here thinking. Like, we just don't think about the future. Sometimes we just are so caught up in whatever the moment is. And so yeah, we might need to start taking a little bit more consideration for all those things. And so let's say somebody is the perfect candidate for Doxy. Did I say? I hope I said it.
You did. Doxiva. There you
Okay,
go.
I want to make sure I said it.
Nicely done.
Say this person is a perfect candidate and they need this product, or the help of this company and whatnot. What would they do? What would they need to do?
I just go to doxiva.com, doxyva.com.
Mhm,
They can order it there. It's not really an expensive device at all. It's actually very cheap.
mhm,
And so I think it's a great home run, and it's certainly something that people should check out, especially if they're having any concerns at all over ulcers, over poor circulation, over pain. We talked a lot about foot ulcers and such, but
mhm,
I glossed over the pain issue a bit. But a lot of times people have tremendous pain, especially back pain,
mm,
because mainly of poor circulation. Or you might say in some cases too, I could go as far as to say poor circulation, which is preventing them from having the musculature necessary to get them through their activities of daily living. In which case, if we can improve circulation and then just do a couple of little things, little very simple programs to improve musculature, then they can also avoid pain that way. So Doxiva is a very powerful tool when it comes to feeling better, being more energized, even improving mood. You know, everything comes down to the health of our blood and our circulation, like I said earlier. So if the blood's not healthy, or if healthy blood is not being circulated, nothing in your body is going to run very well. Everything is going to, think of it this way. Think of it like if you tried to drive your car and all of the tires were pretty flat. It was enough to get the car moving. You could still drive, but they're very short on the PSI, and therefore you feel like you're driving through mud. Maybe you can still get to where you need to go, but it's in a very bad way, and you're putting a lot of risk to the vehicle. And so, and you're getting through very, very slowly and in a muddy way. So what I would say is that that is the way to think of your body with poor circulation. And so many people have poor circulation. So very important product for those who are struggling with their circulatory health.
Right, right. And so it's not necessarily something that needs to be prescribed or anything like that. People can just go and just, if they know that they have this issue, you can just go ahead and go and get it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes, that's
good.
correct.
Yeah, that's good because that, sometimes, with certain devices and things, maybe the doctor has to be like, hey, you're allowed to do this or that. And so, and yeah, that's the thing too. Would that be a concern if they're doing this type of thing on their own? Say, for example, I'm like, well, I'll get it for my future. I find out I have this, whatever the case is. Would that be a concern, or is it something that I do need to consult my doctor about before I make this purchase, or, things like that?
It's, obviously I'm going to say it's always good to speak with your doctor first. Personally, at this point in time, I wouldn't, I couldn't see any real legitimate reason why a physician would be against it. But regardless, it's always a good conversation to have. I think everybody, especially those who are sick, should be discussing everything with their doctor. But it is non-invasive, and for that reason, it's, in a way, I could make the argument, or one could make the argument, that it'd almost be like calling up your doctor and saying, "Hey, is it okay if I go for a walk?" It's really, in my opinion, it is somewhat on that level of safety and such. So, I guess everyone's going to make their own decision there, but
Gotcha.
simple device. And we don't recognize any risks. We don't recognize any real risks that are of any significance that can come from using it.
Okay. Well, hey, that's good to know. That is good to know. Well, how can we reach you? And again, if you could shout out the website and anything you would like to share at this point.
Yeah. Doxiva.com for everything. DOXYVA.com. Visit there. There's great information there. There are also many, I can't even tell you the amount of data there is. I'll mention quickly on this product and on this brand. She's out of all the Ivy League schools, I think most of them have already been involved in studying Doxiva. There's just a tremendous amount of research out there. It's pending FDA approval soon as well. So just really a lot of great information. So you might want to just Google Doxiva and find some of the data that's out there, but certainly on the website as well, on doxiva.com. There's some really great information about the product. I don't think you'll come away from that website after a few minutes without really having a strong understanding of what it is and how it can help you or a loved one or anyone who's struggling with their health and their circulatory issues.
Awesome. Well, I truly, truly appreciate this time talking to you, Dr. Val. And hopefully you'll come back soon and visit us again.
I love that. I'll come back. We'll tell some success stories next time.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Thanks so much. It was great meeting you.
Miracle Sam's, let's go.
Thank you so much for watching Guys, Sex, and Love. And thank you to Dr. Val Fiott for dropping those gems and sharing that information with us today. I hope that you all check out the product Doxiva. And let's all take our health a little bit more seriously. Have a good night.
But I bet you wish it I